Well, we had one more person join. I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Doug Kosa. I want to welcome you all to the MCS 352 Roundtable is Over course. I am with the Thurston Peak District, and as of a few months ago, I am the district commissioner, and been involved in scouting for a long time, more on than off, and just really thrilled to be a part of scouting. And this is a new experience for me. I've never taught a course in a College of Commissioner Science, so it'll be fun. Okay, so like most of these courses, we start off with the course objectives. This is a list of things that you all should be able to do by the time this class is over. If you feel like you're capable of doing these things when we finish, then we'll have accomplished something. If not, we'll have to start over and do it all over again. So hopefully we won't have to do that. But basically, you know, we want to be able to understand and summarize the steps of an evaluation process, which is going to be kind of critical to what we're talking about in this class, and explain the importance of collecting feedback and applying that collected feedback to adjusting our plans for future roundtables. And then the last bullet is to model the evaluation process for units. I've been struggling with that bullet and the content of this class and how I work that in, but we'll see if, I think I figured out something here to talk about here in a little bit, but hopefully you'll have some ideas too. So the main point of this class is to talk about what happens after roundtable. You know, whether you're meeting virtually or in person, I can remember many times going to roundtable and helping set up chairs and put up scout banners and the flag and things like that, and then reversing the process at the end, taking all those chairs down and so forth. And now we do a lot of it virtually, and there's no chairs to put up and take down, but we still have meetings, and we still need to go through some kind of attempt to kind of evaluate what happened when it's all over. So I just want to brainstorm for a second and ask you, maybe use your raise the hand technique, use that, or use the chat line, or both. I just want to brainstorm with you on some ideas about what might need to be addressed after a roundtable meeting is over. What kinds of things might the roundtable committee want to try to consider doing right after the roundtable?
Well, I know one of the things that we've done is around tables that is we've used Cracker Barrel as the what I call pull up your chair and share time when we have detailed information that needs to be given out to the units, rather than taking the time at the first of the round table. We put that at Cracker Barrel. So if there's a question that's asked by one of the participants, we document that question and then add it at the end of the Cracker Barrel. We seem to have been fairly successful when people, if they want to log off, they can log off. They don't have to worry about continue to stay on.
Good. Thanks, Dave. That is a good idea, and it works. I know it's been working very well virtually for us. I'm not sure if the Cracker Barrel would be the best format to try to disseminate more information if we were meeting in person again, as people tend to congregate in little groups and so forth. But that is a great idea. Todd, you also had a thought.
Yeah, a short start, stop, continue session of the roundtable commissioners. I would say probably more in the breakouts, not a larger group, but for instance, the roundtable commissioners with Cubs, that we touch bases with each other before we leave the session might be a good idea.
That's a great idea, Todd. Thank you for that. I think we're going to have more to say about start, stop, and continue here in a little bit. But yes, that's certainly definitely something that should be a part of what you do right after roundtable. Some of the other things that the course syllabus mentions are things like, having discussions about comments that are made during the breakouts, reviewing plans for future roundtables, making assignments to commissioners to help resolve specific unit issues. There's often things that come up during roundtable, either during a general session or during a breakout, where units have questions or concerns or needs that are voiced, and those need to be collected and so forth, and acted upon. Setting a date for the next roundtable commissioner meeting. If you don't already have it on your calendar, those are just some of probably many things that could be a part of that. I'm going to kind of touch lightly on this. The idea here, I think, is the notion that this activity, this sort of process of holding a round table, cleaning up and evaluating kind of at the end of the round table, and then getting ready for the next round table. It's a lather, rinse, and repeat process, meaning it's ongoing. It never stops every month. It's just like shampooing your hair. You can do it one day and you lather, rinse, and repeat that one day, and that a day or two or three later, however often you shampoo your hair, you got to do it all over again. It never stops. And the same thing with roundtable. We just need to keep repeating this process every month. So let's talk more about this evaluation aspect of what happens after roundtable, and how evaluating is kind of the key to future success. When this roundtable is over, imagine you've been to a roundtable now, either virtually or in person. The leaders have gone home, the unit leaders, and so now it's just kind of you and your assistant commissioners for roundtable, and perhaps those that have helped present that night. It's just kind of you left here, and maybe a couple of people that were either assigned to put away the chairs and the tables and so forth, or help with the virtual meeting. What are you going to do? What is your next step? What are the things you need to do after the roundtable meeting is over? The first thing that I think is mentioned here in the course material is to just take a couple of minutes and review how the meeting went. Talk about it, discuss it, spend a few minutes discussing that. Another thing that you should do is discuss any unit problems that were identified during the roundtable. I know frequently, unit leaders come to these roundtables with the expectation, like Maddie was talking about, with her first experience as a den leader. Going to roundtable, she had expectations of having some needs met, and they weren't met that well that night, and so some kind of follow-up could be done, making note of what those needs are and how they can be addressed, and then also making note of units that weren't there. If it's a virtual meeting, you can take attendance by noting who the participants are. If it's a in-person meeting, I know when we had in-person roundtables, we always had attendance sheets that people could sign and let us know who was there and what unit they were from and so forth. And obviously the key to making note of units that weren't represented is an important thing, because if they're not there, they're not they're not getting the benefit of Roundtable, and there's opportunities to follow up with them. I see Dave has his hand up. Dave, you want to share a thought?
One of the things that especially in the virtual, I don't know that we have maintained the breakout sessions so that they could gather, so that the different roundtable commissioners and their assistants can gather back together and complete off the off that, start, stop, and continue, and get prepared for the next meeting. I think we've missed out on that. I don't know. Have you ever done it, Todd?
No, where we pull back to a large group afterward has kind of
Well, by
precluded that.
large group, I mean, I'm just talking about it's just the roundtable commissioners. So
Yes,
just
the pulling back to a group as a whole of all the commissioners and everyone has kind of precluded the breakouts from evaluating separately.
so that looks like that's something that we could work on as a district. But
Okay.
anyways,
One form or another, whether it's in a breakout or some other way, having the ability to focus on the start, stop, and continue. That's great. We are going to talk about that now. Shelley, you have a comment as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering. See, one of the problems in our district is we have ended up combining Cub Scouts and Scout BSA due to low attendance. And I've always been uncomfortable with that because I feel like the Cub Scouts is a unique program that the unit commissioners, den leaders, whoever needs that more specific training. And I'm wondering how I, as a new commissioner, can get that going.
Anybody have any thoughts there? If I heard you correctly, Shelley, I think you're saying, do you not have a separate like breakout for Cub Scouts as opposed to
No, we used to,
Scouts
but
BSA?
we stopped. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that would be a really important key to being able to do that, whether it's virtual or in person. Todd and Dave, you both have possibly some responses to that. Todd, why don't you go first?
Yeah, obviously there's a certain threshold where you don't have common support and input from other unit leaders that you want to have. And so if you have, I don't know what that threshold is, but if there's, I would say 2 or 3 unit leaders attending specific to Cubs, I think that's enough to have a separate breakout, and that could be done. If you only have one, well, they don't have anybody to support them and have a common support group. But that's my comment.
I need to be able to. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Shelley. Go ahead.
I was just saying that one thing our group is good at is the follow-up. Even if it's just all in one, we always have, review and make sure that everyone's questions are answered, any concerns are brought up. That's something our district is very good at.
So
Okay.
is your attendance low enough that they feel like they need to have them together?
That is what my district commissioner has told me. He has not shared the numbers with me as far as what Cubs are there, what Cubs are not.
Oh,
So that's
because
something I need to figure out how to do.
well, should be able to look in your roundtable commissioners toolbox and be able to see the attendance of the different groups, hopefully.
We're going to talk about attendance here in a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Shelley, thank you for
Sorry.
raising that. concern, all of the things, all of the things that we're going to be talking about today, from Maddie's prior class on promoting, among which topics there was, information about promoting Roundtable. There's a lot of things we'll hit on today that all come together to help make Roundtable better, and hopefully can increase attendance and so forth. The other thing I would mention here that came to my mind is you might consider taking advantage of the council roundtable that's going to be held on a quarterly basis as well, because that is that's a time when there should be, quite a few numbers and a great opportunity to share with other people and gain ideas from others. I know the first one that was held in October was there were like 140 people there, so it was very well attended, and you might find that useful as well. One of the things that I've felt like I needed to mention at some point during this class is, when we spend this time right after the roundtable kind of trying to evaluate how things went and talk about these various things about, what went well, what didn't, and so forth, is to allow time for this. So oftentimes I know that, when we had in-person meetings and also virtual, we tend to want to get a lot of content in there and make sure we have enough meaningful content to make it worth people's while. But there's a balance between that and making sure people don't feel pressed for time and challenged. They may plan for an hour, and then if it ends up going significantly over that, then they're going to be anxious to leave. And this evaluation process might suffer because people are in a hurry to get going onto something else. So that's something I think we need to be mindful of as well. The other thing that's talked about here in the course content is using evaluation forms. I don't know how many of you, maybe because we have a few different districts represented here, but we've got 3 of us here from Thurston Peak. So I'm particularly interested in others, and especially out in Missouri, perhaps. Who is anybody using evaluation forms as part of their roundtable? Are you asking participants, attendees, to fill out any kind of a evaluation form on the class that they attended, the breakout they attended, and submit that? I'd be curious. Shelley?
Yes, it wasn't recent, but for the restructure of the districts, we always had a evaluation form, and it was very, very useful. And we did it for the Cub Scout breakout and for the individual breakouts, such as the den leaders, the Cub Master commissioners, and we were able to tailor our roundtable based on those feedbacks. It was amazing.
Great, thank you. I would say from my experience, while I haven't seen evaluation forms used at the district level in roundtable, either in my current district or in the one I was in the old council before we had our council merges, I didn't see evaluation forms used there too much, but I have seen them used at things like the College of Commissioner of Science and University of Scouting and so forth. And I think it can be very helpful, a great way to get feedback. And it kind of forces people to take a minute and think about what they've just received in terms of information and knowledge and ideas and so forth. And it kind of gives them a structure for thinking through, was this valuable? Did it help? Did it provide me with something I can use? Was it done in a way that was effective? Or is there perhaps some additional improvement that perhaps the presenter could benefit from in terms of presentation skills and so forth? It's all very valuable kind of feedback that can be used. I don't know that there's going to be an evaluation form for this class after this one. I don't know. I wasn't told about anything like that, but I would not be at all. I would not be at all upset if y'all provided me with some feedback in the form of an email or whatever. I think it's all very useful and valuable. Want to move on here. The next slide is blank. That didn't happen in my practice. Oh, that's because it looks like the bullets are designed to be one at a time here. So, kind of going back to this idea of, after the roundtable, doing the evaluation, we want to have this evaluation kind of conducted by the assistant district commissioner over roundtable, assuming you have one in your district, and get all the other participants in roundtable, the various breakout leaders and so forth. You've usually got some kind of a team of various commissioners who are part of the roundtable team, and they should all participate in this. And we've talked about this before, but we want to make sure we're using the start, stop, and continue method of evaluation. We're going to do a little exercise here in a few minutes on that. But basically we've all learned it and used it. I think the first time I heard that actual phrase of start, stop, and continue was at Wood Badge, but I'm sure we've all been exposed to it. Another idea is to review before leaving, and then kind of confirm the next meeting, when that's going to be, whether that's an official team meeting or what it may be, but planning for the next roundtable. When I was a long time ago beginning my career, I had a good friend who had been in the Navy, and he talked about planning for future meetings and so forth, and he had an acronym that is mentioned here in the course material. It's the 5 Ps. Prior planning prevents poor performance. Well, because he was in the military, he added a couple extra Ps to that. One of which is a little bit vulgar, but it was prior proper planning prevents blank poor performance, and you can fill in the P yourself. But it's a really good thing to remember. I think, if we want to have a successful outcome at roundtable or whatever it might be, that prior proper planning is really essential to making sure that we have a successful outcome. And always kind of when you're doing this evaluation before everybody takes off, make sure you get a chance to thank them. It's always good to get that encouragement. These meetings, these evaluation meetings after roundtable and sometime during the month, kind of as a planning and preparation meeting for the roundtable committee, they really ought to be considered mandatory in the sense that any scout meeting is mandatory. But I mean, this is kind of where the real work is done for roundtable. It's not so much at the roundtable meeting itself as it is getting ready for the roundtable. And if people are not willing to commit to attending those meetings and being a part of the discussions and so forth and the preparation, they really haven't quite caught the vision, I don't think, of what they've committed to do as part of their position in scouting. So attendance at those should be an expectation of service. Okay, moving on. Let's have a little quick activity here. We've still got about 10 minutes. I want to just very quickly here see if we can identify sort of in a imagine yourself just having finished a roundtable. Let's just, again, using the raising hand method, let's just have sort of a quick couple thoughts on what are some examples of things we might want to observe having happened in this hypothetical roundtable meeting things that we want to start doing that we haven't done in the past, things that maybe didn't go so well and we don't want to do those in the future, so we want to stop those, and things that have gone well that we want to continue doing in the future, perhaps with improvement or not, but the things we definitely want to continue. What are some ideas? What are some examples of things you might want to start, stop, or continue doing? Todd?
Did we give time for participants to ask questions?
Okay, so making sure there's time for people to ask questions. That's a very good one. Yes, I agree. Anything else? Other ideas? Shelley?
I think having the review of what we covered is always effective, and clarifying things that people may have misunderstood.
Okay. And that review, maybe your thought is that review could perhaps not just apply to the roundtable committee once roundtable is over, but perhaps like at the end of a breakout session.
Yes,
Before people
exactly.
disperse and go back to the regular meeting or whatever, just to have a quick review at the end of it. I like that idea.
Yes.
That's great. I can remember some very effective examples of that were done for a varsity scout coach that I was involved with years ago when I attended Roundtable, and he was sort of the varsity scout coach, huddle leader for Roundtable. He always ended his varsity scout breakout session, if you will, with all of us coming together in a circle, kind of putting our arms on each other's shoulders and just taking a minute and talking about, what did we learn from this? What did we learn? Questions do we have? What went well? What didn't go well? It was his own little start, stop, and continue session at the end of that varsity scout huddle. So great thought. Any other thoughts? Dave? Your hand is raised.
It is. And I can't remember what the heck I was going to say, so I won't worry about it saying it right now.
If it comes back to you, raise your hand again.
Yeah.
Some of the ideas that were mentioned in my course material here was, I think, a great example of something we might want to stop doing, and that is having too many announcements. We all know the old adage of death by announcements and so forth. Maybe we can stop having so many announcements. And I know I'm guilty of that when I'm trying to put together some of my sessions that I share with other scouters. Maybe the technology didn't work very well, and we need to be mindful of that. Maybe the attendance was great, and we want to continue promoting Roundtable the way we've done, and so forth. Those are great things to keep in mind. Okay, let's move on. We're getting close to time, and I want to make sure we have enough time. I want to move on to this notion of modeling evaluations during Roundtable. One of the things that it talks about is how we, as we're doing these post Roundtable evaluations, we're kind of modeling the things we should be doing for the benefit of the units. When I first thought about this topic, I got a little concerned because I was thinking, how in the world are we going to model for the units when they've already left? We're having our post Roundtable thing with just the Roundtable commissioners left, and how are we doing that? But I think that this notion of how we do our kind of end of breakout little gathering together and our own start, stop, and continue is a good example of that. The huddle that I talked about from my varsity scout leader, I thought was a great example of that. But the other thing we can do is make sure that our commissioners, Roundtable commissioners, are building that into the Roundtable program itself, and our unit commissioners are building it into what they do with their units when they go visit with units, that they can spend time during those key 3 meetings or whatever they might be doing, where they make sure there's a little time at the end to do the start, stop, continue kind of activity. And there's just great opportunities to do that. Unit commissioners, you know, sometimes they get invited to meetings, sometimes they have to kind of invite themselves. I know it's often a challenge for making sure they get to meet with their units. And now I see that I'm almost out of time. I've got 5 minutes left here. But you know, they can kind of say, I'm an outsider here, but I'd just like to ask, you know, if there's anything that we can review here. I do want to take a moment. We're kind of gonna have to skip through these here, but these slides kind of talk about some of the things that can be done in the roundtable committee meeting. But the other thing I want to make an opportunity to talk about here real quick is commissioner tools for roundtables. I actually had myself logged into my scouting and the commissioner tools, where you can go here, if you can see my pointer, where you can go under commissioner tools to roundtable. And this is a great resource for several different things. You can use it to document the roundtables that have been held. Here, for example, over here on the far right, this is a list of recent roundtables that have been held in a given district or council. If I was logged in, and I'm probably not logged in anymore because it probably dropped me, so I won't take the time to go find it. But when I was, I could see all the recent roundtables. For example, Dave Hatch, who's with us here in this meeting, he had created these roundtables, and this little icon right here, right next to the Scout emblem for Cub Scouts or venturing, there's a little 3-dot icon here. And that is where you can go to log the attendance at a given roundtable. And that's useful. And that information is used, obviously, so that people can know what units were represented in a given roundtable and who was not there. And it's useful to be able to go back, perhaps ask the unit commissioners, hey, there was nobody at your unit in the roundtable the last 3 months. You might want to think about seeing if you can encourage them to come to roundtable, or find out what the problem is. Maybe it's like we heard about earlier. Maybe their scout night is their troop night is on the same night as roundtable, and that can be a bit of a problem. So you know, there's other ways around that. Either they attend another district, or they attend the council roundtable, or they watch the recording of the roundtable. You know, those kinds of things are available. And this is where you can go to create a new roundtable. I don't want to leave the breakout room yet. So these are, this is where you can go to create the new roundtable, and very useful information. I wish we had more time to go through all this. So I'm gonna just try to round things up here. Remember, as was stated earlier, roundtable is unit service, and it's an opportunity to provide meaningful unit service. This is where we find out what the unit needs are. This is where we can communicate with them, either by email, text, telephone, whatever. And going to the commissioners meeting, you know, we should be talking about roundtable and how things went. So just make sure you're remembering that roundtable is an effective way to provide unit service. And this is kind of a summary of what we were supposed to cover here, but it's kind of the same as what we started with. So I want to we've got like 2 minutes left here. I want to give everybody an opportunity. If you have additional questions or comments, now's your time. You might want to switch to gallery view, which is what I'm doing. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can go to gallery view. If you want to do that too, we can kind of see each other. Are there any other thoughts or questions kind of here as we as we wrap things up?